Hello, my name is Mark LeMay. I'm the circuit rider for the community of Kitiganzibi. So I'm here this morning with the two water and wastewater operators, Kevin Jocko and Jason McDougall. So this morning we're doing something a little special. We brought in a private company to do the inspection of our water tower. This is something that can't be done by the operators because it needs a specialized equipment. You will see the guy will go down with the submersible submarine. Okay, so he will do the inspection. Then he will send us a report showing us what the condition of our water tower inside is. However, later on, I will give you an explanation how to clean a normal underground reservoir that we can go into and have access to. So we'll do that later on at the band office. So Josh, when you're doing your outside inspection of the anodes, you had mentioned that since the age of the tank and the readings you're getting, there's going to be a probability that the anodes have passed their life expectancy. So if we have to change them, what would be the procedure to actually change them?
The procedure would be to actually physically drain the tank and get inside by hand and
so we would open up this, we'd drain the tank, we'd open up this trap, go inside, and there'd be like a few bolts inside, and we just remove the old ones and put in the new one?
I mean, it's as simple as there's a coupler nut that holds it to the floor. I unscrew the old one from the coupler nut, screw a new one in, just like changing a light bulb.
Okay.
Stick it back to the floor and good to go. I'll clean the floor while I'm in there and, you know, get a good look at the floor because I'm going to guess there's probably a bit of sediment in there and I'm not going to get a good look at the floor with the ROV. So when we do go in to change the anodes, I can get a good inspection of the floor while I'm in there.
And would that mean we'd have to have a vacuum truck or something like that to be able to suck that out? Or
not on a tank this size. No, I can just use a pressure washer and a vacuum.
Okay. All right, thank you. So this morning we saw that the remote inspection of the water tower using a submersible. That's a rare occurrence because usually our reservoirs are underground reservoirs made of cement that we're actually able to go into because we're able to isolate a section and work on another section. So this morning, since we had the chance to actually have a water tower here and the remote submarine, we thought it'd be interesting for you guys to see how that is done. So in most cases, we're going to have an underground reservoir that has multiple cells. So we're able to isolate a cell and work on the other cell and maintain distribution to the community. So in our case here, we have 2 cells. So we will see what we have to do to clean these cells. Now, remember that we're going to actually begin entering into the cells, the reservoirs. So we have to consider confined space entry. So we must make sure that we are following all the procedures normally used for confined space entry, meaning we got to have our gas detector, we need to put in ventilation, we need a security harness for fall arrest, and we need to write out our permit to enter to the confined space. Also, we will also be putting tools and using equipment inside these reservoirs. So we want to make sure that these materials are disinfected properly. So the best thing is to have a 200 milligram per liter solution of chlorine to be able to clean our boots, gloves, tools, hoses, whatever we're going to introduce into the reservoir. So very simple, just 2 milliliters of 12% chlorine in every liter of water, and that will give us plenty of disinfecting power to be able to clean what we need to go inside the reservoir. Let's go through the steps that we're going to use. So in this case, we're going to clean and disinfect cell A. So what we have to do is we have to isolate cell A. So we will actually shut this valve off and shut this valve off. So the water coming into the reservoir will go through here, go only into B, and then be pumped out to the community through B. So A is totally isolated, okay? What we can do is, if we don't want to waste this water, okay, because we've already chlorinated, the night before we can drain it. So we can use the pumps to bring down the level of water. So we would actually isolate B instead and pump through A, okay? So then we drop the level in A as low as we can, and then we would re-isolate A to do the cleaning, okay? And the rest of the water, we would be able to drain it through the drain. Some places they don't have a drain, so you'd have to come in with a submersible pump, put it down in there, and pump out the water with the submersible pump. So you'd have to do the same procedure we said. We'd have to disinfect the submersible pump and all the hoses and cables that would go in there to set up the submersible pump. Once we've drained cell A, okay, so the water level will have come down very, very low, even should be right down to the floor because we're able to use it coming out of the drain, okay? We will bring down a pressure washer, okay? So we want to wash all the surfaces of the cell with the pressure washer. So we're talking about all the walls, the ceilings, and the floor. So usually when we do that, we need two things. We need the pressure washer and a squeegee, because there will be deposits in the bottom of the reservoir. So with the pressure washer, it's harder to kind of bring the deposits to the sump. So it's easier with a squeegee just to squeegee the water using the pressure washer to rinse off the walls and the floor. So once that is done, there is two ways to usually disinfect the reservoir. We can add water back in into the cell so that we have a concentration of 10 milligrams per liter. Leave the cell soak for 24 hours, drain it, and then refill it with our normal concentration, or between 0.5 or 0.8 milligrams per liter. But that uses a lot of water, so we're going to waste a lot of water. So that is not the method I usually use. So the method I'm going to use is I'm going to prepare a 200 milligram liter solution, and I'm going to put it in an applicator. Usually you get like the applicators that you use for putting pesticides, okay? So you can use that. So I will put that in my tank, okay? And I will spray all the walls and floors with that solution, okay? And usually you just have to let that soak for 30 minutes. So the time it takes you to kind of go around the cell, the first part will already have the 30 minutes of soaking time. So then all I do is come back with the pressure washer and rinse that off, bring that water down with the squeegee and with the power washer to the sump, okay? So once we've established that the reservoir has been cleaned and disinfected, it's time to fill up that cell, okay? So to do so, I'm gonna fill that up and increasing my dosing pumps at a rate that I'm able to have a concentration of 2.5 milligrams per liter inside that cell. Okay, remember the cell is always isolated. It is not going to distribution. We're just distributing from cell B. Okay, so I'm going to fill that cell A with 2.5 milligrams per liter of chlorine, and I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours. Okay, once after 24 hours, I'm going to come back. I'm going to take a sample and I'm going to measure the chlorine, and I want it to be below 1 milligram per liter. If it's not below 1 milligrams per liter, I will open up the drain, okay, to let some water out, and then I will refill it up with raw water, doing the calculations to come below 1 milligram per liter. Since we notified the community-based water monitor, a preventative boil water advisory should have been issued, okay? Because we are working, there is a potential that something can happen, so we want to make sure that the community is safe. So once we've finished and we're ready to distribute and open that cell, the community-based water monitor should take a sample every day for 2 days to confirm that there is no bacteriological contamination in the water in the network, and then the boil advisory can be lifted. It's not necessary to do cell B right after you've done cell A. You can wait, especially if you have groundwater and you want to replenish the aquifer. You can put everything back into operation, and then the next week go back and do cell B. We've talked about a few calculations that have to be done, so I'm going to go through the calculations needed to calculate for concentration in the reservoirs. The first calculation we want to do is volume of our cell. Okay, so we're gonna assume that our A cell, the dimensions of A cell are 5 meters of width times 20 meters of length times the height of water in our reservoir at our high level, which in this case is going to be 3 meters. Okay, and this will give the volume of water inside our reservoir. So 5 times 20 is 100, times 3 is 300. So that's 300 cubic meters. The next thing is to be able to calculate how much chlorine we need to inject into the reservoir to have a concentration of 2.5 milligrams per liter. We should be familiar with the formula C1 V1 equals C2 V2. Okay? So C1, we're going to say this is our chlorine, the chlorine that we purchased from the company. So this is 12%. So we know that our chlorine is 12%, okay? And 12% represents 120,000 milligrams per liter. So we always have to have the same units. So times V1 is actually what we want to find out. We want to find out how much chlorine do I have to add into this cell to bring it up to 2.5 milligrams per liter. So this will equal C2, that is the concentration that we wanted. So that is our 2.5 milligrams per liter, times our volume, which we had calculated up here at 300 cubic meters, but we have to have the same units. We're using liters here, so we have to convert our cubic meters into liters. So we know that there's 1,000 liters for every cubic meter, so this will come up to 300,000 liters. Okay? Then we'll do our cross multiplication. So this becomes 2.5 milligrams per liter times 300,000 liters divided by 120,000 milligrams per liter. This gives us 6.25 liters. So in order to bring up our 300 cubic meters of water in cell A to a concentration of 2.5 milligrams per liter, we have to add 6.25 liters of chlorine at 12%. So basically it's pretty straightforward to clean the reservoirs. Okay, the main things is just to make sure of security. So you want to make sure proper confined space entry. I hadn't mentioned when I talked about confined space entry, when you're going down, you are applying a rather high concentration of chlorine. So you should be using the proper cartridges for your face mask. Okay, you'll also need your face shield and a rain jacket and pants because you're going to be spraying water, so you're going to be getting wet for sure. Okay, so these are things you got to consider. You're going to need proper lighting when you're down there also because it's going to be dark, so you got to be bringing in lighting. And as I said before, make sure that everything is disinfected that's going into the reservoir. Okay, the calculations are rather basic and straightforward. Most of you should know the C1 V1 equals C2 V2 and a basic formula for calculating volume. Okay, so just be very methodical. There are no rush because your well is isolated. You're still distributing water to the town, so there's no reason to go in a rush. So just make sure you're doing things safely. When you get down there, you will see there's valves and things, so you can go look at them, make sure that they're operating properly, that they're free of rust or damage, that they're tight. A lot of times they won't be tight, so sometimes you just have to kind of open them up a bit. Sometimes it's just a deposit of iron that could be there, so you can try to open up and close it, and that will kind of flush it out. So even if there's a little drip, that's not a big deal, because when you're back in operation, all your valves are open in the open position, so it's not an issue. But if you see that you're not able to close the valve enough to actually do the job, then you would have to go back at a later date and have someone fix that valve. Just remember, within any maintenance job, the job isn't done until your tools are cleaned, put away, and you have logged the maintenance you've done in your preventive maintenance manuals.